So I hopped on YouTube Studio this morning to see if there were comments I needed to answer. And what the view that you get, there's a dashboard. But one of the things it shows you, is how many views the video has gotten compared to the average over time. And this is a little wonky because obviously the time of publication matters. And I don't know what time this came out yesterday. Also, the day of the week seems to matter. And if I publish things too close together, that also matters. It seems like the sweet spot for you all is 2 days. But anyway, the point is that this video got far fewer views than the average. And this is coming off of the heels of, where was the last one? Let's see. Oh, it is up there. Here, that was the last one. This one was higher than average, and so was this one. And so as you look down the themes here, it's interesting because a pattern emerges, and I think I've shown you this before, but actually it's so predictable now that my young teenage children laugh about it. When I publish videos, they'll say, oh, that one's going to get a lot of hits if it's in the set of topics that you all find salacious. And so things like end times prophecy, criticizing churches, of course anything with polygamy, these things blow up, relatively speaking, relative to the baseline. And if I want to make a video that gets very few clicks, although to be clear, I don't make videos based on clicks, but if I anticipate that a video is going to get a very low number of views, it's going to be because it's about repentance, it's about thinking better, it's about more accurately appraising value, it's about how to be better parents, it's about dating smarter. In other words, the closer we get to things that actually matter to you in your daily lives, I can guarantee that it will have fewer views. And the more of this I load into a video, the fewer the views it will get. That's really, really bad. So, I want to teach a principle here, and that is that one of the most valuable things a minister provides is a more accurate appraisal of what's valuable. Now, we could interchange the words angel and minister if we want to. It doesn't really matter, but it will help some people better understand the importance of what I'm saying. If God wants you to have more value in your life, how do you think He's going to make that happen? What opportunities do you think He's going to extend to you, and how? I'm telling you, one of them is He will put people in your life that have the things that you know you need and the things that you want in order to help you better see the value of what you don't think you need and what you don't currently want. This is absolutely vital to understand. Our modern mentality, which is trained by egregious surplus, prosperity that is unearned by those that enjoy it, it trains us to think that life, our interpersonal connections with people, it's just a never-ending buffet where we can pick and choose what has value, as if our appraisal of value were accurate in any way. In fact, that's probably so strongly imprinted upon you that you find me suggesting anything otherwise incredibly offensive. How dare you? Right? Well, it turns out that if we turn down the volume of the unmerited prosperity, and let's say through some collection of events that maybe we'll just call the end times for the sake of argument, we could remove a great deal of that unmerited prosperity, very quickly you would see that what I'm saying is correct. Most people have an absolutely terribly inaccurate appraisal of value. They make extremely bad choices. They have exceedingly low awareness. They lack courage. There's an easier but less nice way of saying that. They're not all too intelligent. Okay? That's, as you get to the average, that's what you approach. And just keep in mind that half of people are worse. So, by definition. So, we're trained to do the opposite of what the best would be. And the consequences of doing so in a sea of unmerited prosperity, they're dampened, highly dampened. So here's my advice to you. When you find someone who has something that you know you need or that you want, pay attention to what else they have. So if you have a question that you don't know the answer to and you find someone who has the answer, it's highly likely that they also have other things that are worth even more than that. Why? And so I did the example of questions. You could do this for problems and solutions. You can do this for unmet needs or wants, yearnings, longings, whatever it is. Okay? Heck, if someone has a screwdriver and you don't have a screwdriver, odds are they have more tools, right? Do you think, there's this guy down the street from me in my old house, and I spent 2.5 years renovating this crack house. And this guy, he had every tool. He was like 3 doors down from me or something. And so when I needed something, I didn't just assume he only had that one tool that he lent me last time. The first thing I did was I asked him, hey, do you have whatever random tool? And it'd be somewhere in the back of his garage, right? That's a logical thing to do. If you give a mouse a cookie, the mouse will ask for a glass of milk. But in many ways, mice are wiser in this generation than the children of light, right? To apply that the Lord's phrasing from the New Testament. Because we get our cookies and then we don't ask for milk. Maybe more specifically, we get our cookies and then when we're offered milk, we say, no thanks, I don't like milk, or I don't need milk. And the person giving the cookie says, trust me, it's better this way. And we say, no thanks, I'm independent. I don't need no minister, right? It's hierarchical, folks. Someone who sees, I'll give you a very specific example of this. A while back, someone contacted me, someone quite close to me, and said, hey, I'm in this terrible situation, and if I just had $2,000 in cash, it would solve all my problems. And I said, look, I'd love to help you, and I happen to be in a position at the moment where I could, but I also happen to know that $2,000 is not your problem. And I'm happy to solve the issues that require money, but I'm not willing to do so until you fix the problems that generated this situation. And in this person's case, they were living in a house that was way bigger than what they needed and living in a really high cost of living place. And there was no reason to do that at this point in their lives. And so I said, how about you sell your house and move into a less expensive place, both the domicile and the area, and you can move on with your life that way. And we'll pay off your bills and you'll be good to go. And he said, no, I don't want to sell my house. And I said, well, what you want to do has to come from the set of options that are before you. You don't just get to want arbitrary things and then expect them to happen. You have to choose the best option in front of you. And basically, this person said that they didn't really want my advice. And I said, well, the reason I have $2,000 to give you in the first place is because I also have the advice. I have the wisdom that got the money. And that's the reason I have it and you don't. So if you want the money, that's fine. I'm happy to give it to you. But first you need to take the wisdom, because otherwise you're just going to be calling me again in another year or two. And so people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear that these things co-occur and that it's hierarchical. And you could take this too far. Fine print is that God is just, but he's also merciful. And so until his justice is fully applied on this planet, which it will be in a coming day, there are going to be many righteous people who have greater light and truth who are not the richest people in the world. Elon Musk is not the most righteous person on the planet. Now he has and exercises a lot of wisdom, but I digress. So when you find someone who has what you lack, pay attention to what else they offer. And if it offends you to think in hierarchical terms, you can simplify this into something like what Amazon offers when you go to look at a product to buy. It says, if you like this, you might also like that. You could think of it like that. So if someone's offering you something that you say, wow, this is life-changing, this is just, I'm not hearing this anywhere else, and it's just going to make such a difference in my life, pay attention to the other things that person says, right? Okay, now applying this, if you go to the YouTube channel and you click on videos, which I'll do here, and then you click on popular, what it's going to do is give you the highest number of views first. This is always fun to look at. Anyway, if you scroll down, you've practiced this most days, this doom scrolling, I think is what the young kids call it. But now you're going to use your powers for good instead of evil. And so you just scroll to the end of the line here, and I'm pushing the limits of Elon Musk's wisdom here because I'm on Starlink. Okay, you get to the bottom. YouTube has not given us a shortcut for that. And what you'll find is a bunch of audiobooks, which if you've read the book, fair enough, you don't need to listen to it. And then a book review or two, okay? But you do see videos here. Now, I happen to know that YouTube did some funky things when I posted these two. It offset the date for some reason. I don't know why. And so it showed up in the past, and people didn't see it if they were just coming to the channel to check or whatever. But these videos happen to be really important. And so what I'm telling you is, if you want to find things of the greatest value, look at what most people don't care about. Now, you're going to find a lot of things that shouldn't be cared about. In fact, a picture would probably be appropriate here. Most people don't care about most things. And so it's a much bigger haystack, but that is where the needles are. If you look at what's boosted in popularity, it's almost all trash. That's a great, if you had to make a binary rule of this is worth it or it's not, what is popular is almost always not going to be worth it. And that's the opposite of what we do. Like when everybody and their cousin is reading a certain novel, you're much more likely to read it. But you should actually be much less likely to read it. That would be more truthful. It would be more accurate. Because most people prefer garbage. And that's what gets boosted in the system we have today. But if you target what most people find is less valuable, you're going to have a whole sea of options that's huge compared to just what's trending right now. So how do you sort that out? I've already given you the key. Find people that have what you know you lack. And then look at what things about them are highly unpopular. Now, again, this is completely different than what people do. But I'm telling you, this is the way. If you look at Jesus, when he was all about the loaves and fishes, what happened? So he started healing people. Let me back up. Back it up. Jesus' ministry started during his normal life. People like to say when his ministry started and it was 3 years. Technically, that was just his public ministry. He was Jesus his whole life. And he was, again, as the young people say, he was spitting facts the whole time. His mother knew this. That's why at the wedding in Cana, she told the servants, do whatever he tells you. She asked Jesus, hey, we need some wine. And then she turned to the servants and said, do whatever he says. She knew. How did she know? Because she had been with him since birth. All those lessons that he gave to all the people he knew, and I'm not saying lessons like the overt teachings he taught during the 3 years, but you can't help but emit light when you have it. You do it, God's light, it shines in and through all things. It's fractal. It's true for everybody to the extent that they have his light. It will shine in and through all things. That's why we read of Joseph of Egypt, that God blessed everything his hands touched. It's because the light was in him to a great extent, to a higher extent than those around him. That is a psalm about the Lord, but it's also fractally true, so true at lesser scopes, of all of his servants. That he was anointed with the oil of gladness above his fellows. That's the way it works. So anyway, Jesus, you could have learned so much from Jesus if you had the awareness to see during the 30 years of his life that preceded his public ministry. And that was a rhyming couplet, unintentionally. Anyway, so what would the key have been? The key would have been like when he was in the temple and he was answering the questions of the elders who were not only much older than him, but they were professional theologians. It was their job to have the answers, and yet they were asking him questions that they didn't know the answer to, and he knew the answer. So what would have been the necessary response to that? Just to bid him farewell as he runs off to go find his parents 3 days away? No. If a young child is there, look at the reaction of Eli to young Samuel when Samuel has a theophany. Here Eli, the older, learned official, chief priest, was meant to be the interface between humanity and God. And yet this little kid who got dropped off by his mom as I wanted to say penance, but there was no sin, as a reward to God, a thank you to God for opening her womb, this little ragamuffin. Samuel was a great guy, but back then he was just a little ragamuffin. God starts speaking to him. So what does Eli do? Does he huff and puff and say, how dare you suggest that you're hearing something from God when I'm the one who's the priest? No. He says, listen and do whatever he says. Right? When Joseph in Egypt, and in preceding examples, when God blesses everything his hands touch, the wise people, the captain of the guard, the captain of the prison, and Pharaoh himself, they put things under his charge. They don't just stop. The Pharaoh didn't say, oh, you've interpreted this dream that no one in my whole empire can interpret, including the people whose job it is. It's their only job, and they failed. You can do it. Therefore, back to prison with you. Thanks, I got what I needed. See ya, chump. That's not what the Pharaoh said. Why? Because he was wise. See, people think wisdom is about what you have. Actually, always preceding that, wisdom is about a more accurate view of what you lack, a more honest reaction to what you lack. Those who are willing to be fools will be made wise, and those who insist that they're wise will be made fools. That's God's law. He will abase those who are exalted, and he will exalt those who are abased. If you lose yourself, you find yourself. So, if you honestly recognize that you lack something, and you find it in someone else, the next step is to say, what else you got? Take me to the back of the store. What's the stuff that no one wants to buy that you think is highly valuable? And here's your answer. Go to the bottom of the views and start there and go up. Here's the one that we were just looking at that came the other day. You know, very few things are as important to the Lord's work right now. This is a profound statement to make. It's quite a claim to make. Very few things are as important to the Lord's work right now than these 3 videos. Especially this one. And yet it's got 80 views. All right? So then as you're going through these, it's just audiobooks. Here's a future prediction about cost of and access to utilities. It was 3 months ago. By the way, you're seeing the fulfillment of this daily. One of those future predictions is about car insurance exploding. And I just saw an article. I've been seeing articles daily for a few days now about how some people are now paying more for their car insurance than they are for their car payment. And I told you it's going to get to the point where some people will not be able to afford to drive. It is happening. Anyway, but if you don't pay attention to these things, then you don't get to benefit from them. Right? And we can just keep cruising up here. And I'm just looking at these and trying to remember what they're about. That's pretty meta. This one's on analyzing the view count on that John 9 video. So anyway, what you'll see is that there is an inverse relationship between value and actual value and publicly perceived value. There's an inverse relationship between actual value and publicly perceived value. So I think that's sufficient. Hopefully you find that helpful and you encounter the blessings assigned to living this principle.